You're listening to The Last Straw, the show about reclamation, reinvention, and momentum, hosted by executive leadership and reinvention strategist, Christy Straw.
I have been told to stay in my lane so many times that I could literally start my own toll road. It is facts. Everybody is obsessed with telling somebody else how they need to stay in their lane. Now, I've noticed this in corporate for a long time. Y'all know I'm a corporate refugee, as my friend Hillary would say. Shout out to Hillary with the corporate refugee line. But let me tell you, I like to say I retired from corporate. For me, that just hits better. My background's in wealth management and retirement planning, so it feels good. And my dad retired from the state police actually at 48 years old, and I always wanted to retire before him. So Dad, make it be known, episode 2 of the Last Straw podcast, I'm saying, claiming a stake in my ground that I retired before you, my man. I had to say it. I had to make it public. So welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Listen, I would not be sitting here with you all today recording this podcast in this amazing studio with my amazing team around me with amazing things coming up if I had stayed in my lane. I always tell people, stay in your lane is probably one of the most triggering phrases for me. A lot of people when I was in corporate would say, oh man, everybody always says, but this is the way we've always done it. And that used to be their triggering line. And I don't know what it is, but for some reason, well, I do know what it is. Okay, let's be real. I have ADHD. Hello, everybody. My name is Christy Straw, and I have ADHD. And I'll be 45 in December, and I was just diagnosed at 43. And so I do know why I get pissed off when people tell me to stay in one lane, because it's like literally impossible. If you were in my brain, you would understand we were just excited to have lanes in my brain and to be able to differentiate between them at certain points in time, okay? So I noticed, and maybe some of you have, that especially in executive leadership, corporate America, your ambition, if it is outside of your department or outside of your project, looks a lot like a damn violation. It is violating to these people that you would dare show up in a space typically reserved for somebody with this degree or somebody with that background or somebody who has this relationship, all right? The people who tell you to stay in your lane are almost never going anywhere themselves. And this reminds me of Brene Brown. She's my queen. Y'all know I love some Brene Brown. I'm Brene Brown, Dare to Lead trained. It was absolutely fantastic. And she always says, do not take advice from people who are not in the arena getting their asses kicked. It's a quote from like a famous old guy. But basically her point is, do not take advice from people who aren't also putting themselves out there. And this is kind of always how I put people in the stay in your lane comment, right? Why would I take advice from somebody who's literally been in accounting for 27 years and had the same title for 26 of them? That was not the path that I wanted for myself. And while I think that's a beautiful path for those who are wired that way, probably an architect, by the way, on the Authentic Authority Archetype quiz, while I think that's a beautiful path for you, it's not what I want. I want to be multi-hyphenate. I want to be multi-passionate. I am ADHD and wired that way anyway, so I really kind of thought we should just roll with it, right? So I've been told my whole career, hey, pick a lane, lady. Why do you need to be in the commercial banking meetings when you're actually a wealth advisor? And then the collective loss of minds. Why do you need to be in the HR meetings? Why are you designing our logo for our humanitarian efforts when you have no marketing degree? Why are you on the commercials that are floating all around Little Rock and on every radio station across Arkansas, North Carolina, and Florida when you have no background in PR? Well, I'm going to tell you why. And I want you all to just brace yourself for it. Because I fucking can. That's why. So we're going to talk about staying in your lane and how you feel a call to make an impact somewhere else. All right. What others see as a distraction is a lot of times how you're actually wired and designed as a human. Some of us aren't meant to travel in straight lines. My career has never been a linear path, and that's okay. All right. Leaving corporate and refusing to shrink to fit some job description, and because I didn't want to pick a lane, is my story. All right. It's an evolution for me. And maybe it's an evolution for you too. Outgrowing your lane often means outgrowing the people who wanted you to stay there. And I could do a whole episode on that. As a matter of fact, I probably will. Has anybody read the book, Who, Not What? All right. Dan Goldman, Who, Not What? Amazing book. I'm obsessed with it. And recently, I've been really kind of looking at how this applies to my life. And what I've noticed is the people who constantly tell me to stay in one lane are not evolved humans. They have not reached their transformational state. And despite the fact that 70-something% of corporate executives describe themselves as transformational, the data does not lie. And I'm here to share with you today, friends, that while 70% say they're transformational, the data says that only 10% of people truly ever reach the transformational leadership state. You can read all about it in the book, Who, Not What. You know where they get stuck? In the authorizing self state, which is let me control access. Let me make sure we don't have anyone around who doesn't disagree. And let me make sure that I'm a gatekeeper of ideas, point of views, people, etc. All right. That is not any of the energy that I'm here for. And if you're listening to our podcast, you're probably not here for it either. All right. So that's not discipline, right? That's not diversity of thought and idea. That's not staying in your lane. That's being ignorant on purpose. Let's call it what it is. That's why I wrote the book, Unicorn Leader. Did you know that unicorn is actually an acronym for a high EQ leadership framework? Most people thought that I was just on a whim and loved Lisa Frank because I was born in 1980. And those things are true. I am usually on a whim. I do love some Lisa Frank. And I was born in 1980. So naturally, unicorns and those things were my deal. But the reason I titled that book Unicorn Leader is because my executive assistant, when I walked into my C-suite role, said, well, you must be a damn unicorn. And it was my first day, the first hour, the first 10 minutes of the first hour of the first day. And I was like, girl, tell me more. I am a unicorn. People have told me this my whole life, but why are you saying it? Because that's true. And she said, because we've been looking for this role forever and we finally found somebody that they want to fill it with. We need a feeler. Okay, what she meant by that was on the Myers-Briggs quiz or whatever you call that. I'm an ENFP, all right? I'm extroverted, I'm intuitive, I'm a feeler, and I'm perceptive. And so she said, we've been looking for a feeler. We need people with feelings. Girl, did you give the memo to the actual peers I would have been working with? Because they were not here for feelings and they did not like anything that I brought to the table. And it was just not going to be a good fit. And that's okay, that's okay, that's okay. Not a problem there. But point being for everybody here, that's why I named the book Unicorn. And the reason I wrote a book about a high EQ leadership framework is because I did not experience anything high EQ in my executive leadership journey. I did not. I don't know once people get past the level of a VP if they just forget that the letters E and Q are even in the alphabet, but they certainly forget what the hell it means. And so I had to write a book about it. And so Unicorn stands for unique, nimble, nurturing, inspiring, compassionate, optimistic, resilient, and noble. All right. So any brand that we talk about, any leader that we talk about, anything that we do in my world these days should be the engine, right, that drives sales, does all of the things that you need to from a business development standpoint, but is also married with the idea of being high EQ and multi-passionate. And I think it's a real secret to success, all right? It's actually how I birthed one of my best-selling products. It's called Brand-Led Business Development. And we talk all about how if people understand you better as a person and what drives you and makes you tick, then your brand is going to be better off for that. Now, some of you might say, whoa, I came here to listen about leadership and reinvention. Why are we talking about a brand? Well, first of all, I want y'all to email me or leave a comment and name one leader you know that got there without any visibility. Name a CEO. Because I've been thinking about this for years and I can't name one, which is why I go so hard on the fact that visibility is a big, important part of having a brand. And so if you're an executive leader in any capacity, if you're a founder, we've got lots of founders in our audience. Hey, founders, we love you. Executive leaders still doing their time in the system, trying to make it better. Hey, we love you too, right? Entrepreneurs, parents are leaders, right? Anybody that's a leader in some capacity has a brand, whether you want to or not. And every conversation becomes warmer, faster, and easier when you lead with your authenticity. So when you stop chasing attention and you start building trust, that's when everything changes. And it certainly was the case for me in my business as well. All right. So listen, I have a mentor and she has been telling me for months and months and months, you have too many products. There's too many things going on in your business. Nobody knows what the hell you're doing. Your audience is confused. And this is what I would like to say to my mentor with all the love and respect in the world. The type of people that hire me are not confused by complexity or depth. And frankly, if they're confused by complexity or depth, or somebody might have 5 or 6 or 10 things that they offer and are good at, they're not a good fit for me and they are welcome to find someone else. Now, it has taken me 18 months to get to the place where I could confidently say that. I pay a shitload of money for business coaching, okay? I have mentors. I have coaches. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on personal development over my life. And it finally felt so good to look somebody in the eye, who I'm paying a good amount of money, by the way, and say, girl, expand your own vision for yourself and don't try to diminish mine. This is just an area we're going to have to disagree, because I believe in being a multi-passionate person. I believe in nonlinear careers. I think some of the most successful people in the world jumped around and did different things all along their life. And did you know that the number one determining factor of success of an entrepreneur is this? Psychological agility. Which again, back to the book, Who Not What, they talk a lot about psychological agility and how don't be so married to how something happens, be married to the outcome and the impact of what happens. And there's just a lot of leaders that I've seen in the world that don't get it and that certainly aren't comfortable with it. All right. Do a lot of coaching for people. Do a lot of conversations around, hey, there's so many things that I'm good at. I've got a client right now. She's a CFO for a nonprofit national. And she said, I don't want to do that anymore. It's boring. I don't want to just be a CFO. And anyways, I do so much other shit. It's not even fair that they only call me a CFO. And I said, oh, well, tell me all the things you do. This woman is taking care of functions spanning everything from bill pay to HR to maintenance of the building to all the finances. And I thought, you sound like a chief operating officer to me, girlfriend. What are we going to do about that? She's like, well, it's so funny you said that because that's what I actually want to do. I'm tired of only being able to talk about finances, yet being expected to fix these 4 other departments. But when it comes to having an opinion, I'm only allowed to have one about what my degree is. Yet I'm trusted to fix and run budgets for all these other departments. And I'm like, yeah, that's the paradox, right? We recognize your value, but once we want to put a number behind it or an accountability associated with it, now we just need to remind you to stay in your lane. That is literally the story of my corporate life. So this brings us to our ribbon of reckoning, all right? Every single episode comes with a ribbon of reckoning, and I made these myself with my little limited founder budget, and they're so cute. And it literally says, the Last Straw Podcast Ribbon of Reckoning, bet on yourself. And I know that everybody is dying to come on this podcast and earn their own ribbon of reckoning. And so what is mine? What is mine for this episode? All right. When you're stuck, it's rarely a strategy problem. I want to just repeat that for everybody at home because I think we don't listen to this enough. When you are stuck, it is rarely a strategy problem. It is usually a story problem. And by story, it's the one you're telling yourself in your head, or it's the one someone across from you is telling you, such as stay in your lane. All right. So the ribbon of reckoning is to align your story with what you actually want to be doing and then make that traction become effortless. You don't need an entirely new marketing plan. What you actually just need is to step into what you truly want to be doing. And that is the whole entire purpose of reinvention. And so Ribbon of Reckoning today, all about stepping outside of your lane, recognizing, like I said at the top of the show, that lanes are for traffic, not for visionaries. And so many of you who tune into this show are visionaries. And so listen, I want you to check out our brand-led business development mini playbook, okay? Shoot me an email. Happy to send it to you, totally free. Also, we talk all about how if you were to post content yourself, it gets 800% more views than if your company posts it. So once you know how you're wired to lead through the archetype quiz and you know what leading and influencing and selling looks like, move on to our brand-led business development portion, which is all about how you can put yourself out there more authentically. All right. And don't worry about staying in a lane. The whole point of this life is to practice being multi-passionate people. Until next time. This has been another episode of the Last Straw podcast. Let's tell the truth and build something better from it.